So we got that bed there absolutely as full as we can get it. Maybe a little bit too full, but there won't be any shortage of good groceries coming out of here. What's up, Lazy Dog fam? Hope everybody out there is having an awesome day. It is October 25th, beautiful morning here in Southwest Georgia. On the last video, we were talking about that rogue frost we had last week and what we were doing to kind of plan for that. So I want to give you an update on how things fared through that super early first frost we had. After that, we need to check on our alfalfa pellets that we put down a couple videos ago, and our garlic plot. Probably need to go ahead and incorporate them. Then we're going to do a little planting here in our raised bed plot. Try to get 2 more of these beds planted with some stuff we have in the greenhouse. So last Thursday morning, although the temperatures only got down to about 35 or 36, we did indeed have some frost on the ground. It wasn't covering the entire yard, but there were patches of frost on the ground. Really early for us to be having a frost. Like I've told you before, we usually don't get a first frost until, the end of November, early December sometimes. So we did have some frost on the ground. Not everybody had frost on the ground. I've talked to other people in our area who didn't have any. We did have some. On that last video, we were talking about, okay, what are we going to cover? What are we going to run a sprinkler all night on? And what are we just going to cross our fingers on? So for this raised bed, which has some zinnias, basil, cilantro, and dill in it, we covered this with some Agribon fabric, which we've since removed, and it looks like everything in here survived just fine. For our fall taters and our polar bear pumpkins, we just kind of crossed our fingers on this plot, and thankfully we didn't have any significant damage. Everything here still looks pretty good. On this plot that has mostly cool season veggies, we ran the drip all night to insulate that soil. No damage on our broccoli, cauliflower, Brussels sprouts, or cabbage. We covered these peppers here, and I've left them covered because I think creating a little more humid environment around those peppers will help them grow a little bit more. They won't get stunted by some of these cool mornings we've been having. For our 40-foot row of turmeric here, we crossed our fingers on this as well because we didn't have enough frost protection supplies or enough sprinklers to really do anything here. Thankfully, everything is looking pretty good. We might have got a little bit of damage on a few of those leaves, but the plants are still kicking along. On these 3 rows of Ruiz okra here, we ran a sprinkler all night from about 11 o'clock to 8 o'clock in the morning. That helped these guys out. Didn't have any plants dying or suffering from frost here. We're done harvesting these for food. Now we're just letting them fill up with pods so we can use this as a seed crop. And then lastly, the plot I was most worried about, our pole field peas and our climbing butter beans here. So what I did on this one was I took one of my camping tables, just a regular old folding table, set it about right there, put a tripod sprinkler on it, kind of angled it so it was shooting more kind of straight up in the air, and I was able to get some pretty decent coverage over this entire arch here. I don't think I got complete coverage. We got a little bit of burn on the end there, but nothing really significant. So we ran a sprinkler all night on this and was able to save it. So I feel pretty fortunate that we didn't have any significant frost damage on our vegetables. Now I mentioned we did have frost in the yard. I didn't really see it on many plants out here. I saw it on the collards, I saw it on the kale in these raised beds, not really on any of the other plants. Would we have gotten some really bad damage had we not ran a sprinkler and covered this stuff? I guess we'll never know, but better be safe than sorry. So now let's take a look at our future garlic plot here. So several videos ago, we pulled back the tarp, raked out some of that dead plant debris, and put down a bunch of alfalfa pellets here to give us a long-term nutrient source for this garlic. So we put out 2 40-pound bags, 80 pounds total, and we've watered it in several times to get those pellets to expand and start to break apart a little bit. So we can see here by all these little tiny pieces that some of these pellets have completely broken down so far. Some of the other ones haven't quite yet, but they will if you just crumble them up in your hands. So what we want to do is come through here with the wheel hoe and just lightly incorporate these into the first couple inches of soil. This is our no-till plot, so we're not going to till these into the soil. We don't want to disturb the soil too much, but we do want to incorporate these a little bit. Let the dust settle, let go of the pedal, there's too much here. Let these towers turn to rivers, let these instincts steer. Alright, so based on my camera time clock, that took exactly 12 minutes to get that incorporated as best as we can without absolutely pulverizing everything. Now, in some areas of this plot, some corners, it's a little more dry than others, and where it's a little more dry, we've got some chunks out there. Not really worried about those. Once we get some water on this, hopefully we get some good rain this week that's in the forecast. That should kind of break apart those clumps, smooth this out again, and we'll be ready to plant pretty soon. Now, one interesting thing that came to mind as I was wheel hoeing that plot there is that in these no-till plots, when we pull back the tarp, we don't see any fire ants. Now, in our tilled plots, when we tarp those for a little while, pull back the tarp, we usually see a few fire ant beds out there. It's not a huge deal, because once we start working in the plots, disturbing it a little bit, the fire ants usually move to an undisturbed area. But in these no-till plots with all this compost on top, I've never seen any fire ants when we pull back the tarp. I wonder why that is. Do they not like the compost on top, or is it something with the soil chemistry that keeps them from building beds in there? Let me know what you think in the comments below. Alright, so now that that's done over there, time to do a little planting over here. So we have all but 3 of these raised beds planted so far. We got that round one over there in the corner. I think I'm going to save that one for some spinach. Today, we got these 2 big boys here we need to fill with transplants. So in the greenhouse here, we need to grab these 2 trays. We got a tray full of lettuce, 5 different varieties there. And we got some Savannah mustard and pak choi here. So I came out here earlier this morning and set up the mainline manifold for each of these tall beds. So we've got our valve there so we can turn each bed on and off. We've got our mainline tubing running to each side or wall of the bed, got those capped off. And yes, with this setup here, we do lose about 1 plant's worth of space there on each side of the valve. But we're going to stick with this way for at least this season. We may change it up in future seasons, and if we wanted to, we could run a little piece of drip tubing backwards there and plant 1 more plant there if we wanted to. But so far, we've still been getting plenty of good groceries planted in each of these beds, even with losing that tiny little bit of space there. Now, in all these rectangular beds so far, we've been using drip tape. In the round beds, we create a setup with drip tubing to give us some nice coverage over the entire bed. One thing I'm going to do differently with one of these rectangular beds is use drip tubing as well. So for the bed that's getting lettuce, I'm going to use drip tape, because my drip tape has a 12-inch emitter spacing. That's the spacing I want to put my lettuce on. But for the Savannah mustard and the pak choi, I'd like to plant it a little closer. And this drip tubing has 6-inch emitter spacing. So we're going to give the drip tubing a try on the mustard and the pak choi, stick with the drip tape on the lettuce. So for this bed, which is going to get mustard and pak choi, I'm going to install 4 lines of drip tubing. And in this bed, which is going to get 4 rows of lettuce, I'm going to install 4 lines of drip tape. Alright, so we got our 4 rows of drip tape set up there. I tried to skip a step instead of burying it. May just cover it with soil a little bit as we go along and plant there. We'll see how that works. May end up wishing I would have buried it. And then over here, we've got our 4 lines of drip tubing. I did use some staples to pin those down so they'll stay where I want them to be. Bought this off Amazon a few weeks ago to use in those round raised beds. 100 staples. It was pretty cheap. Nice little investment. They seem like they'll last a while as long as we can remember where we put them. So we'll start out here with our Savannah mustard, which is, in my opinion, hands down the best eaten mustard out there. Now, you don't have to transplant this stuff. You can direct seed it, but the seeds are kind of expensive, so you wouldn't want to just scatter it like you would cheap mustard seed. That's why we grow it from transplants. I'm going to plant this pretty thick along here. I think I'm actually going to do a double row of it. So I'm going to put one plant here right by this emitter, another plant here right by this emitter, and then on this side I think I'm going to go in between those two plants, put a plug right there. We get a nice dense row of this stuff in here along this drip tube. Alright, so we got one double row done there. We're going to do one more double row right here. Same way. We'll go on one side, plant beside every emitter, and then we'll just alternate on the other side. Alright, so we got that Savannah mustard over there planted really densely. That should fill in really nicely and almost cover the entire soil over there. Be a lot of good groceries off that half of the bed. Over here we're going to do the same thing with the pak choi. So we got some nice looking pak choi transplants here. Now you can plant these on a 1 foot spacing and they will get big enough to fill in the gaps there. These heads can get pretty big if you feed them well, but you can also plant them on a tighter spacing and grow kind of what they call baby pak choi. And so I like them a little smaller, so we're going to plant them tight in here, and that way we have full coverage over the entire bed. So same thing we did with Savannah mustard. On one side we're going to plant right beside the emitters, just like this. And then on the other side of the tubing, we'll go between those plants. Alright, so we got that bed there absolutely as full as we can get it. Maybe a little bit too full, but there won't be any shortage of good groceries coming out of here. Now for the lettuce, pretty much the same concept, except we're using drip tape here and we're working with a 12-inch spacing as opposed to a 6-inch spacing. But we're going to do the double row kind of the same way we did over there with the mustard and pak choi. So we'll start out with this Cherokee lettuce here, and on this side we'll put a plant beside each emitter. And you can certainly, with these lettuce varieties, do cut and come again, just take a couple leaves at the time. But we always let them grow out and single cut the heads. That's why we give them a little more space in here. If you were going to just pull a few leaves at the time, then you might not need to put them so far apart. So we got those two on emitters. We're alternating between those on the other side of the tape here. Do that all the way down. All right. So 2 more beds down, only 1 more to go in this plot, and we were able to squeeze 41 lettuce transplants in this one raised bed. So if all the transplants survive, we'll end up getting 41 heads of lettuce out of this little space right here, which will be pretty incredible. We've got lots of different varieties here. So we've got a Cherokee red lettuce here on this row. We've got Salvius romaine right there. And we've got an oak leaf variety, and then this Muir lettuce right here, and then one of our favorite butterhead varieties called Adriana on this back row. Now I'm probably gonna have to let the drip run all afternoon, especially in these 2 beds we just planted. That way we can get some good water coverage for all those transplants we put in the ground, even the ones that are not directly on top of an emitter. Once those transplants get some roots established, water coverage shouldn't be an issue, but at least early on we want to give it a good soaking. So I told y'all a few weeks ago that my goal was to get everything planted in this raised bed plot before the middle of October. Well, turns out that goal was a little bit too lofty. Things come up, you don't always get things done in the week you think you're going to get them done, but we've still got plenty of warm weather left for this stuff to grow out. Even if we get a frost, it might bite that lettuce a little bit, but usually won't kill it. This stuff will grow fine throughout the winter here, so even though we're a week or 2 later than we wanted to be, we'll be just fine. Now we still have that one round raised bed where we're probably going to be planting spinach. I was going to do that last week, then we had that cold spell come through, had to kind of prepare for all that, and then early this week we jumped back into the 80s, but it looks like after today we're going to be out of the 80s for a while. Things will cool down. We need some cooler soil temps for spinach to germinate, so we'll probably be doing that on one of the next upcoming videos. So I hope you enjoyed the video today. I feel like we got a lot accomplished in just a couple hours we were out here today. Don't forget to let me know in the comments below if you've dealt with fire ants before, why you think we don't get fire ants in the no-till plots, but we do the other plots. And for you raised bed gardeners out there, also let me know what you think about our plant spacing in these two beds we planted today. You think we squeezed in there a little too close, or you think it's about just right? If you're watching on YouTube, be sure to check the description below for lots of good links. We've got links to all the irrigation pieces we used in this video, links to the irrigation blogs on our website that give a breakdown of all the pieces we've used for our raised bed, in-ground, and fruit tree irrigation systems. We've also got links for all of our affiliate partners there and some coupons so you can take advantage of those discounts. Don't forget to go check out our website, lazydogfarm.com, where we've got hats, shirts, our garden blog, recipes, all kind of good stuff over there. If you did enjoy the video, be sure to subscribe, hit that notification button, like and share, and we'll see you next time right here at Lazy Dog Farm.
Oh, farewell, by the beauty of your life.